Howdy folks, welcome back to Boonedockery. Today I'm honestly and truly going to have a real wild camp. Rest of the day today, all night tonight, all day tomorrow. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Definitely woods therapy I have been in dire need of for a very long time. Now this particular video is going to be focusing on my modified A-frame shelter that I use and have used for many years. Ever since I did my DD 4x4 video, I've received a lot of questions about different aspects of that modified tarp construction that I do. In particular, how I use bungees to be able to close off the ends to basically make doors and close the entire space in. So I'm going to be answering those questions, as well as showing a couple other little tricks that I use for my modified A-frame tarp shelter that I have used for several years. It served me well, and hopefully you might be able to pick up a couple tricks that you can throw into your bushcraft bag of tricks. First of all, I want to tell you I'm using my Blackhawk SOF tactical rucksack. It's based on the Alice frame and is loosely based on a modified large Alice pack. And this is the one that I walnut dyed, and the more and more I take it out, the more and more I'm liking the color a little bit better, and everything I've tried to lighten it up, it hasn't worked, but that's okay. This will be perfectly fine for you know, the fall, winter, and definitely early spring. But as far as my camp goes, one of the things I've done for many years now, it's a habit, I think it's a good habit to get into, is I keep my tarp in the very top of my ruck. And no matter what pack I'm using, I always want to have access to that tarp for a shelter. It could be for emergency purposes. It could be that, you know, you and your buddies are hiking the trail in the rain, you want to take a little break, and you don't want to stand in the pouring rain and try to, you know, heat up your water to make some ramen or what have you. You just want a little bit of shelter. So being able to have your tarp in the very top of your ruck already slung with your ridge line, and having your stakes right there at the ready, you can put that up. Everyone can sit underneath of it, do what they need to do, get a nice respite, and pack up. You roll it back up, put it in the top of your ruck again, and if it's sopping wet, well, you just close up your ruck, you roll it up, put it on top, and you fold the lid over top of it. But that's pretty much the way that I run this, and it served me well over the years. So let's go ahead and get this slung. For the ease of filming and to be able to show you the details of my ridge line, I went ahead and removed my ridge line from my tarp. What the cordage I'm using is actual real paracord. This was actually cut from an actual military parachute by a good buddy of mine. He gave me a big bag of different hanks of these that was a habit he used to get into every time that he was in operations, airborne drops, things like that, is he would cut several of the strands off of the parachute, stick it in his ruck just in case he needed it. But that's the cordage I'm using. Now I am running these little cams. They're locking cams. They have like a little clip on there, and as you pull the cordage through, it locks it in position, and this little locking device keeps that in position. Now when I wrap this around the tree and I've got the position that I want it to be in, I just go ahead and tie a slip knot right in there like that. I put in my carabiner cam, and then as I pull that out, it tightens around it. And I have my Prusik knot tied, already pre-positioned, and I can either untie the square knot and tie it straight into the webbing, or I can slide a toggle stick through the webbing and lock that around it, which is what I usually do. And so that possible configuration gives me some options. And Then once I have those in a position, make sure the ridge line is good and taut, and then I pull the prusik knot out on either end to tighten that tarp. I'm going to go ahead and get that tarp in position now and give you a peek at it before I start staking it out. Now I'm going to show you a close-up of the way this cam goes. There's a little slip knot I was telling you about that I hooked that through, and the cam simply pulls back, and I usually will set up my ridge line right about a little over head height for my 4x4, and we'll pull that back, just make sure it's good and tight, and it's ready to go. And here you can see a regular toggle setup with the locking cam, with the carabiner style clip on there, and the slip knot and the prusik knot. Got the tarp nice and tight. As you can see, the ridge line around the tree is right about my head height. After doing this for so many years, you sort of, it just comes naturally. You wrap it around that height now, which makes the angles of the modified A-frame go perfectly into position to where I'll be able to close off the ends and use the bungees to actually make doors out of those loose ends. Now also, I rig it to where the webbing and the reinforcement is along the side. And the reason being, as you use tarps, they will stretch. And also, they will be exposed to environmental conditions such as humidity, heat, rain, water, snow. And a lot of times, even though you have a good tight tarp configuration, these sides tend to dip in. And if you're going to have to spend some time inside your shelter, you're going to want to be able to maneuver around in there as best as you can. So I will use bungees, or usually bungees. If I forget and don't bring my bungees, I'll use 550 cord to pull these out and anchor those out further away. And that just gives you a little bit more maneuver room once you have all the perimeter staked out. Now, before I start staking out the perimeter of this, there are 2 pair of webbing tie-out points, and each one of those I am going to do a neat little twist around. It's not a knot. There's not really a lot there to tie a knot with, but it'll hold it into position long enough to hold it together while I stake out the other 6 positions down at the ground. I want to show you a close-up of how I do that. Now, the 2 ends here, I mean, if you're really, really good, you could probably tie that out as a knot. But what I will do is I will run one all the way through, run that all the way through, pull it tight, and that should hold it well enough for when I stake it out. And I don't need it to hold really, really super tight. I just need it to hold long enough for me to stake out the base, double check and make sure that's the distance I'm going to need it at, and then I can undo this little twist. Now the next part, I'm going to use 4 tent stakes and my handy dandy homemade little tent stake pusher and puller. I'm going to go around and I'm going to stake out 4 points. I'll pull the camera back so you can see where I'm doing that, and I'm only going to stick those in just a little bit. And then I'm going to go around and check it, make sure the alignment's good, and then when the alignment's good, I'll stake them down permanently. And if it's not good, I'll do whatever adjustments I need to do until I have everything as symmetrical as I can possibly make it. I'm only going to be concerning myself with these inner 3. There's a tie-out point here, here, in the middle, over there, and there. I'm going to take one, put the stake in, take my pusher, pull it out to where I think it's going to be good, and just in there loose, skip the middle one, come out to the one that's next to the end, and I'm going to push that in just a little ways. Go around and do that to all 4 sides, and then I'm going to check it and make whatever adjustments I need to. And when they're in a good position and the ends look like they're just a little bit loose, tiny little bit loose, then I know I'm in good position to be able to use the bungees on the ends to make the doors. Now, this is the position it should be in when I get the bungees pulling across. As you can see, it's dropped down and it's got a good bit of sag. What I need is to have some overlap in there for the doors in order for them to work properly and keep that draft out of. So right now the stakes are in good position. I'm going to go ahead and stake the center stakes out on each side. Make sure that I've got my stakes good and embedded, and I'll show you a little trick I do to make certain that the webbing doesn't come through in a strong wind, and then we'll be on it. Now we go ahead and push this in a good little ways, and I'm going to pull the webbing up to the spurs underneath my tent stake, and I'm going to wrap. This is 1 foot of super thin cordage that I've got laced through the hole, and I am going to, let's see if you can see this or not, I'm going to pull it around, under, over and through, pull that, and then pull this loose section up here down over the spurs and push it the rest of the way in. Now what this does is it doesn't do anything to secure your tent or your tarp any more securely. However, if you do get a strong wind, what happens is this will fly up and your tent stakes go flying, and a lot of times you lose them. This right here is just simply going to prevent you from losing tent stakes, because I've lost so many of them in wind situations that it'll just hold that on there until you can grab it, secure it, and stake it down. A lot of folks, they make a mistake by not bringing extra tent stakes with them, and so they wind up having to sharpen a stick or whatever to try to stake it down to get through the night of harsh weather. Now everything's staked out, everything's ready to go. Now I'm going to be using my bungee to close in the ends to keep some of that draft down. Now granted, it's not a zipper, it's not Velcro, it's not going to keep all of it out, but it's going to keep a good bit of it out. You're going to need to have a total of 4 short strands of bungee cord. I'm using 1/8 inch bungee, and 4 longer sections. And as far as the short section goes, I just simply put out a line from my fingertip to my shoulder. It can be shorter than that, like arm length. That should be sufficient. And my other cordage is a double arm width. Now, what I'm going to do with each one of these is I'm going to do that little slip knot again. Wrap it around, loop it through, and pull it taut. You want to have a little bit of that end out, so that way when you are done using it and you're ready to pack it up, well, you simply take that loose end, pull it, and you don't have to mess with untying tight knots. So you're going to do this to one end of every single one of those 8 strands of bungee cord. Okay, the next step, you're going to need to have 1 short and 1 long bungee cord for each side. Each one of the little slip knot loops for each one of the short and the long will loop over the tent stake on the corner here. 2 of which will be tied on the exterior, 2 of which will be tied in the interior. The only difference between those is when you loop them around your tent stake, you're simply just going to tuck the excess to the inside, walk in, and repeat the same process that we're going to do on the outside. We'll take the short end first, drape it over tent stake, make sure it's down over the spurs, and then we're going to be moving across these flaps. See if we can get the wind to not be an impediment. And you're going to drape the loose end through the loop, pull that fairly taut, not completely tight, and then you're going to use whatever type of tensioning knot or hitch that you prefer using. I'm using a taut line hitch. I prefer that. And once I have that tied, then I'm going to tighten it up just a little bit more, and then that's going to secure that to the bottom. Now the next bungee, which is going to be tied to the middle webbing between the top and the ground, there's two different ways you can do it. One of which is if you prefer to have one end closed off, you're simply going to do it exactly the way you did with the bottom. You're going to run your slip knot loop over the tent stake, and you're going to put your tensioning knot through that center piece of webbing and tighten that up and cinch it down. Again, you're going to have two that are going to be the outside of those flaps, and then two that are going to be on the inside of those flaps. If you're wanting to use one as an exit, well, what you're going to want to do is create a toggle, and I'm going to show you how to do that first. I'm going to show you how to do the toggle line, and then I'm going to show you how it works. You're going to be using the long bungee cord. You've already got your slip knot loop over your tent stake. You're using the loose end. You got your toggle stick, and you're going to hold your bungee cord to the back of it, roll the cordage around to the bottom, behind itself, pull it back around, and put the loose end in the loop that you've just created, and pull that tight. Now, this is adjustable because when you first do this, it's going to be loose. So in order to adjust it, put your fingers here, pull it up to the tightness that you want, and once you have that to the tightness that you want, lock it in position, put your fingers on there, and then pull the other side down. Now once you have that in the position you want, it's good and snug, it's holding your tarp flaps down, then you're simply going to tie another slip knot around through here. Around that, and that's going to act as a lock to prevent it from slipping loose again. Once you have everything finished for the weekend, you're ready to break down, then you simply pull that slip knot and loosen it up, and you're good to go home. Now this side is the side that I've closed off. I'm not going to be using this as an entrance or an exit. And they have, from the bottom to the top, they have about 5 to 6 inches of overlap. And with the bungee, it's going to give in decent wind. And yes, wind can get through there, but it's not going to be as easy as if they were loose or open. So this is what the closed side looks like. I'm going to show you the side with the toggles, and I'm going to show you how you use those to get in and out. Now this is the toggle side. And this is it closed. And as I take each toggle out, make sure to hold on to them because they're spring loaded. The one that's anchored on that side, you put on the same side loop. Make sure you get it in there, it'll go flying. And the one that's anchored right down there, you put it on that loop. And now it holds the door open for you to where you have easy entrance and exits. Now I'm going to bungee out the sides. This side is pretty easy because all I need to do is pull it out. The thing is, with the sides, you want to have a longer guy line to do that, and I like using bungee cord because it's not going to put the stress on the shelter. If you get high winds, it's going to put the stress on the bungee cord, so you're going to get some flopping in there, but you're not going to get any tearing of your tarp. This particular bungee cord, again, it's the 1/8 inch, and this is 2 double arm widths that I use. Tie off the end, the square knot, well, not square knot, overhand knot. Let's pull that out, go all the way down through. Get my tent stake and my handy dandy homemade tent stake pusher and puller. I have a video about this, by the way, if you're interested. You just pull this out. Make sure you get not maximum tension, which is there. Back it up about 2 feet and push that in, and you should be good. If you're camping with others or you're absent-minded, you can always put some type of high visibility tape or cordage or something on there. But if you notice just how much of the interior space has just been increased by doing this, watch this, okay? And that's significant. And if you have to hunker down inside your shelter for a longer period of time, having that amount of extra space could be a godsend. My next bungee is going to be a little more complicated because I've got the fire pit right here. This is usually where everyone hangs out and things like that. But it's just me. It's just me. But that's okay. I might decide to hang out here. And I don't want my tent stake to go right in the middle of the fire pit. Go figure, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop it through here. Have one line going out as high as I can reach it with a tensioning knot on this tree, and then the other one on this tree. This is a 4 double arm strand of bungee, and I'm going to go ahead and loop that around on itself once so it doesn't slip when I'm going from one side to the other. And this one here, this is really nice because it's got a branch sticking up there a little higher than what I'd normally be able to reach. So we got a good little section there. I want to do my taut line hitch. And I know I'm going to need to come back and tighten this up once I get the other one done. But that'll suffice for now. And with your taut line hitch, just like I did with the toggle on my door, you can always bring your cordage up and do that slip knot, and that'll lock that in position once you have that where you want it to be. Over here, and I'm actually going to get that as high as I can, pull that as snug as I can, and loop it around on itself, because I'm not going to, all the adjustments I'm going to do is going to be on that if I need to get it tighter. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a taut line hitch here just simply because it's easy to remove, but it's not going to be able to provide any type of tensioning because I've looped it around the tree already. There. Now, if you have a very small, lightweight lantern of any type, LED lantern or something like that, you could probably hang them from these. But for the most part, I don't do anything with these but tension these out. And go ahead and lock that into position. Now I've just increased my interior space of my tarp tremendously. Now this process was painstakingly slow to show it to you. I can do all of this just in a matter of minutes. And I've gotten to the point now to where it's just second nature. I pull out the cords, do-do-do-do, 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 boom, 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 and it's done. Especially since I already have my tarp line already strung, it's all you have to do is just hang it up there. Today I wanted to show it to you so the ridge line was separate. That makes it a whole lot faster. And then just getting familiar with the knots, getting familiar with your routine, and before you know it, something that has taken probably a long time by now can get done easily in under 10 minutes. And but all I have to do now is I sling my hammock to the same trees, pulling it through. I have all that set up in there, and that's just a regular hammock setup because your straps go right through the opening on either side. So I'm not going to show that to you, but once I have everything set up, I have my digs all nice and arranged and decorated the way I like it. I'll bring you in and let you see what it looks like. Well, I've got everything set up inside the tent. Let's take a quick look at it. Why I call it a tent? I mean, it's a tarp. Okay, you can see that the doors are open with the bungees, and this is the hammock area, and this area here is pretty large, as you can see. Now, this heavy-duty space blanket is just about the perfect size to be in here. I mean, the length is almost perfect with the flaps folded in. Now, I wanted to show you how the interior looks with the closed side. And here's my cinch. It's on there pretty tight. I can tighten it up if I need to. It will relax a little bit, but that is it in its closed position. As you can see, not a whole lot of air is going to get in there. And when you have the doors propped open, or bungeed open I should say, it makes it very easy to get in and out of. And closing it back up is not an issue at all. Already you can see that the warmth of the sun has sagged the tarp a little bit, so I can cinch that up just a little bit more with the Prusik knots and tighten it just a little bit. But for the most part, I'm very, very pleased with it. And there's enough room in there, especially when I'm bungeeing out the sides, that I can have a folding camp table in there, a folding camp chair. There's tons of space. The camera doesn't do it justice. And I'm using my GoPro because I thought that it would do a better job with depicting the interior space. But it's pretty significant. Well, folks, hopefully this video answered a lot of the questions that were posed in my DD 4x4 tarp review in the comments. A lot of you specifically wanted to know exactly how I set this thing up, and it intrigued you. So hopefully this will answer those questions. If by any chance any of the things that I showed you when I was setting this up happen to be things that you think, wow, I think I want to use that, fantastic, my job is done. For a 4x4 tarp, this configuration is absolutely fantastic. One person can sleep in the hammock, one person on either side on the ground. It's an excellent 3-person shelter with your room for all the gear right down the middle underneath the hammock. And you could definitely use it on a larger tarp. And there's a good possibility you might even be able to use it on a 3x3 to some degree. But I know for a 4x4, this configuration and all the little experimentations I've done to lead to the tarp configuration that it is, works absolutely fantastic for me. Well, folks, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Folks, if you like today's video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you like what's going on with the channel and you've not already subscribed, I'd appreciate you considering to do so. And as always, if any of the information that I share on my videos happen to be informative to the point to where you think someone you may know might get a little bit of information from that they could use, please consider sharing these videos with others. And always comment. The past several months have been really rough on me personally, and it's really dwindled my time tremendously, but I'm still plodding along, reading every single comment and replying to every single comment. All the recent videos that's been going on, I answer those first, and then I go back and try to get into replying to the older backlog of comments, but eventually I'll get there. Folks, I appreciate your support, and I always appreciate the kind words that you have for me in the comments. Those mean a lot to me. Some of the comments aren't so great sometimes, but the ones that you guys, really put your heart and soul into make it all worthwhile. I deeply appreciate it. Thank you. I'm trying out, first of all, using the fee b just right. I've got it pretty much memorized. Are going to loop over this tent stake. You're going to have two the way I do it anyway. And what you're going to do is you're simply going to use your talk and get a stick. Any kind of stick will be sufficient as long as it's not rotten. Pull it behind, pull it up, and tuck it through that loop. Pull that tight, and when you pull stick, loop, don't loop. Shut up, John. Just got a 2 double arm length, or two, just took a strand of double for those of you that really wanted to know the full shebang, how I set everything up, how I do the toggles, how I do the bungees, everything else, because you wanted to set yours up like this, well, here you have it, friends. And